So if you tell your coworker that her husband sounds like just a fantastic guy, you might have actually just ruined her entire day.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you agree with your best friend that her partner is acting, incredibly lazy, well, you basically just planted a ticking time bomb right in the middle of your own social life.
Yeah, a massive one.
Today, we are completely deconstructing this conversational minefield that honestly almost every single one of us walks blindly into on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And that is talking about other people's spouses.
Right, because we treat domestic life as if it's this ultimate safe zone for small talk.
We really do.
Like we think we're just being polite,
Right.
right? Or showing support, or just making harmless conversation in the break room.
Chilling time by the coffee machine.
Exactly. But beneath the surface of these seemingly mundane interactions lies this incredibly volatile landscape. We're talking about status anxiety, invisible hierarchies, and psychological triangulation.
Wow.
When you start commenting on the private partnerships of others, you are literally playing with fire.
And that is the mission for today's deep dive. We are taking a magnifying glass to the hidden psychology of interpersonal boundaries because we want you, the listener, to understand the underlying mechanics here.
Because it's so counterintuitive.
It really is. We want to figure out why our absolute best intentions, whether that's, offering a glowing compliment about someone's partner or just trying to be a sympathetic ear when a friend needs to vent, why these things so frequently backfire and sabotage our relationships.
And to get there, it requires completely unlearning some of our most deeply ingrained social habits.
Yeah, we have to start from scratch.
Pretty much. The concepts we are analyzing from our source material today, they basically flip conventional etiquette completely on its head. We are going to explore why being highly agreeable is actually a huge relational red flag.
Which is wild to think about.
Right. And why learning to be, well, entirely unremarkable might actually be the greatest social superpower you can develop for your own peace of mind.
Okay, so for anyone who has ever walked away from a water cooler conversation feeling just like a strange lingering tension after paying a compliment, or maybe you felt somewhat tainted after nodding along to a friend's venting session, this one is going to rewire how you interact with your social circles.
It really will change how you talk to people.
So let's unpack this. Let's jump right into the deepest end of the pool, because the first major paradigm shift we need to confront is completely backwards to how we usually think.
Okay, lay it out.
The simple act of giving a compliment is inherently dangerous.
Yeah, which goes against the very fabric of how we are socialized, right?
Totally.
From childhood, we are taught that praise is this universal good. It's a social lubricant that builds rapport.
Like if you want to make an acquaintance feel valued, you highlight something positive about their life.
Exactly. And a very common manifestation of this is praising their spouse. You might say something like, your husband is so incredibly supportive of your career, and it's just amazing how much he handles around the house.
Which, on the surface, that sounds like a platinum tier compliment.
Right.
Like you are validating their life choices, you are celebrating their partner, and you're just putting all this positive energy into the room. If I say that to a colleague, my brain instantly registers that I've done a good deed.
You're patting yourself on the back.
Exactly. I'm like, look at me. I'm being a supportive colleague today.
Well, the problem is that we fundamentally misunderstand the architecture of praise when it happens in a group setting.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, praise does not exist in a vacuum. It inherently creates a structure of comparison.
Comparison, right.
Yeah, whenever you verbally draw a circle around a specific set of traits and you label them as the standard for a quote-unquote good, capable partner, you are simultaneously and often completely unconsciously acknowledging the existence of the bad, incapable partner.
Oh, wow.
You are introducing a metric of evaluation into a casual space.
I see where this is going. It's like it's the sociological equivalent of grading on a curve in school.
That is a perfect analogy, yes.
Yeah. Because if we are sitting at a dinner party with, say, 3 other couples, and I announce that someone's spouse absolutely crushed the test and gets an A+ in domestic duties, well, it intrinsically means the other spouses at the table are suddenly getting pushed down the curve.
Yes, you've set a new baseline.
The success of one highlights the potential deficit of another. But the crazy part is nobody at that dinner party actually asked to take an exam.
Nobody asked for it. And that sudden introduction of an uninvited exam is exactly what triggers immediate status anxiety in the group.
Right.
You might be directing your positive energy solely at person A. But person B and person C are sitting right there listening. And humans, we are evolutionary pattern matchers.
We're always scanning the room.
We are hyper-attuned to our relative social standing. The moment you establish this new gold standard in the middle of a casual conversation, person B and person C might suddenly feel like they or maybe their own partners are being negatively compared to this newly minted benchmark.
So what does this all mean for the person actually receiving the compliment? Because a compliment meant as a gift for one person instantly morphs into this invisible hierarchy for everyone else. And I imagine the person receiving the praise feels this shift in the atmosphere, like immediately.
Oh, instantly. They can read the room.
If you tell me my partner is a superhero in front of our mutual friends, I might feel this, 2-second rush of pride. But then the social pressure cooker turns on.
Yeah, the spotlight is glaring.
I suddenly realize I am standing at the top of a pedestal I didn't ask to be put on, and I'm making my friends look bad by comparison.
Exactly. You are immediately burdened with the emotional labor of managing the room's ego.
Ugh, which is exhausting.
If you are socially aware at all, you feel the eyes of the group on you. You can literally sense the microscopic resentments forming in the air.
Right, people shifting in their seats.
And this often forces the praised person into a panicked act of self-deprecation just to level the playing field again.
Oh my gosh, yes.
They feel like they have to actively diminish their partner just to soothe the anxiety of the group.
I've seen this happen so many times. They start backpedaling instantly. They're like, oh, sure, he cooks, but you should see the absolute disaster he leaves in the sink. He is practically a child.
Right. Which completely undermines the compliment anyway.
Totally. You've basically forced them to insult their own spouse just to restore equilibrium at the table.
It's a lose-lose situation.
But wait, what happens in a scenario where the situation is reversed? What if someone isn't bragging, but rather being highly vulnerable about their partner's shortcomings, and the listener tries to use sympathy instead of praise?
Okay, this is a crucial distinction.
Because in our source material, the author talks about her own husband. She admits he doesn't do much housework and doesn't bring in a massive income.
Right, and that anecdote is so vital for understanding the nuance of domestic boundaries. She is offering a very grounded, realistic assessment of her domestic life.
She's just stating facts.
But the pivotal detail she includes is that despite his lack of domestic skills or high earning power, he works earnestly and diligently every single day.
Yeah, the earnestness.
But earnestness is the foundational truth of her marriage. It's a complex picture, right? It's not a cartoon caricature.
Right, it's a real human relationship. And then an acquaintance hears the first half of that, the low income, the lack of chores, and tries to perform what they think is a supportive social function.
They think they are helping.
They lean in and say, oh, that sounds terrible. I am so sorry you have to deal with that. The acquaintance truly believes they are offering deep emotional validation.
But the reality is that the acquaintance just stumbled blindly across a major psychological tripwire.
Boom.
Hearing that sympathetic reaction creates this immediate visceral tension for the wife. It places her in an agonizing double bind.
Oh, so?
Well, on one hand, her evolutionary instinct to protect her family kicks in. She feels this sudden, fierce urge to defend her husband against this outsider because the acquaintance completely missed the crucial context of his earnestness.
But on the other hand, there's that social pressure to be agreeable, right? It pushes her to just nod along.
Exactly. If she defends him, she makes the acquaintance look foolish and creates conflict.
Which is awkward.
Very. But if she agrees with the acquaintance, she's essentially throwing her own earnest husband under the bus just to keep a casual conversation flowing smoothly.
It places the recipient in an impossible position.
It really does.
Yeah.
And this highlights the core danger here. The domestic relationship is a black box.
A black box. I like that.
As outsiders, we never truly know the internal mechanics, the shared history, or the private compromises that make someone else's marriage function.
We only see the tiny sliver they show us.
Right. So when we insert our own external evaluations, whether that evaluation is a glowing, he's amazing, or a sympathetic, that's terrible, we are aggressively imposing our own limited framework onto a highly complex, private ecosystem.
We are essentially colonizing their private life with our own uninvited judgments.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, but I need to push back on this quite strongly when it comes to the empathy side of things.
Sure, go for it.
Let's move to the scenario where a friend actively comes to me to complain. Like, let's say that my close friend is visibly distressed. She sits down and she starts venting heavily about her partner.
Okay.
She says he never listens. He is constantly undermining me in front of the kids. I'm at my wit's end.
A very common scenario.
Right. And if I don't agree with her, if I don't offer that sympathetic outrage, aren't I failing her as a friend? It feels like refusing to validate a crying friend makes me a borderline sociopath.
That is the most common defense of this behavior. And I mean, it stems from a genuine place of care. We want to alleviate the pain of the people we care about.
Exactly. I want her to feel supported.
But what's fascinating here is that we have to separate emotional validation from factual corroboration.
Say that again.
Emotional validation versus factual corroboration. You can validate a friend's emotional state without actually corroborating their negative assessment of their spouse.
Oh, I see.
Because the danger lies in stepping into what psychologists call triangulation.
Triangulation. Okay, break that down for me in this specific context.
Sure. So in a domestic dispute, the conflict is between 2 points, the wife and the husband.
Right, okay, 2 points.
When the wife brings the conflict to you, she is attempting to draw a third point, which is you, into the dynamic to stabilize her own position.
Wow.
She is seeking an ally to bolster her case. And it's a very natural human instinct when we feel insecure in our own arguments.
She wants a teammate. She wants me to hand her a microphone and say, yes, you are right, and he is wrong.
Precisely.
Okay.
But here is the critical failure in that logic. Her status and her identity are permanently intertwined with her partner's.
Right.
She possesses the internal clearance to heavily criticize him because they share a bond that can theoretically absorb that criticism.
They're a unit.
But the absolute second you agree with her, the moment you say, wow, he really is a toxic narcissist, I can't believe he treats you that way, you transition from being a supportive sounding board to an external attacker.
Mm-hmm.
You are now an active critic of her family unit.
That is so true.
Yeah.
I am so caught up in the immediate emotion of the conversation that I don't realize I've just crossed a border I can never uncross.
Exactly.
Like, the venting spouse is allowed to hate their partner on a Tuesday, but I am not.
Because on Thursday, they might reconcile. And this is the life cycle of spoken words that we constantly ignore.
We just assume words disappear.
We do. But words do not evaporate just because the emotional temperature of the room cools down.
Right.
Let's play out the inevitable conclusion of your scenario. She goes home, they have a massive argument, they finally communicate properly, they apologize to each other, and they repair the rift.
Okay, crisis averted. The marriage is stable again.
They are back to being a united front. But I am still standing there holding the bag.
Yep.
My statement that he is a toxic narcissist is still just hovering in the air between us.
And it doesn't just hover. It ferments.
Ooh, ferments.
Once the couple reconciles, the wife is going to experience cognitive dissonance regarding your conversation because now she loves him again.
Exactly. She now feels deep affection for her husband again, but she vividly remembers that you hold a highly negative, deeply entrenched view of him.
Oh, that is so uncomfortable.
To resolve her own internal discomfort, she will likely project that negativity right onto you. Suddenly, your attempt at empathy has transformed you into a perceived threat to their marriage.
You become the friend who doesn't respect our relationship.
That's exactly the label you get.
That is terrifying because it happens so easily. Just think about the accumulation of casual agreement.
It adds up fast.
You're at a dinner party, someone is ranting about their spouse's annoying habits, and just to avoid the awkwardness of dead air, you throw in a couple of, yeah, that's ridiculous, or I would never put up with
They're
that.
just little fillers.
Right. You are handing out these little micro-agreements, like candy, completely oblivious to the fact that you are legally signing on as a co-conspirator in a domestic dispute where you have absolutely zero actual stake.
You are accumulating relational debt for a conflict that isn't even yours.
Relational debt. That's a great term.
And people are fiercely protective of their family units, even the ones they openly complain about. It's basically the universal sibling rule applied to marriage.
Oh, I know the sibling rule.
Yeah.
I can call my brother an idiot, but if you call my brother an idiot, we are going to war.
Exactly. That's it perfectly. When we aggressively nod along to venting under the guise of empathy, we are violating that ancient tribal rule.
It really exposes the selfishness hidden inside our own empathy, doesn't it?
It does. It forces us to look in the mirror.
Because half the time, our desire to be fiercely agreeable in those moments isn't actually about comforting the friend. It's about managing our own discomfort with conflict.
We just want the tension to end.
We want to be liked. We want the person sitting in front of us to think we are a great, supportive ally.
Yes.
Which, brings us to a specific personality archetype from the text that weaponizes this exact dynamic. If the danger is words taking on a life of their own, The most dangerous vector for those words is the people pleaser.
Oh, absolutely. The psychological profile of the chronic people pleaser is dissectable through a very specific evocative Japanese term from our source, the Hapo-bijin.
Hapobijin. The literal translation is someone who attempts to be beautiful in all 8 directions.
Yeah.
I love that phrasing.
It's very poetic, but the reality is quite toxic.
Yeah.
It refers to someone who curates a flawless, frictionless facade for every single person they interact with, regardless of who it is or what ideological direction they are approaching from.
They just morph into whatever you need.
Yes, in Western psychological terms, this is the chronic chameleon.
Right.
It is an individual who is pathologically averse to taking a firm, potentially unpopular stance. They survive socially by perfectly mirroring the emotional state of whoever is currently in their line of sight.
Again, on the surface, this sounds like the description of an incredibly charming person.
They usually are very well liked initially.
Because someone who is beautiful in all 8 directions sounds like the ultimate party guest.
Yeah.
They make you feel heard, they match your energy, they never start arguments.
It's very seductive.
But the underlying analysis takes a very dark turn when it observes how the Hapobijin operates within the realm of gossip.
We really have to look at the mechanics of how they maintain that universal beauty. To be completely agreeable to person A, who is complaining about person B, the Hapobijin must throw person B under the bus.
There's no other way.
The individuals who most enthusiastically engage in vicious gossip about absent parties almost invariably possess this trait.
Wow.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, they will fervently match your outrage, validate your most uncharitable interpretations of your spouse, and swear absolute allegiance to your perspective right to your face.
Which, let's be honest, feels amazing in the moment.
It's intoxicating.
You walk away from the conversation thinking, wow, I am so validated, that person really understands my struggle. But if we apply a tiny bit of critical thinking to the situation, the illusion shatters instantly.
It falls apart immediately.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I like to think of the Hapobijin not just as a mirror, but as a human social media algorithm.
A social algorithm. How do you mean?
Well, think about an algorithm on a platform like TikTok or Twitter. It doesn't care about objective truth. And it certainly doesn't care about your long-term mental health. Its only imperative is immediate, friction-free engagement to keep you scrolling.
Oh, that's a brilliant comparison.
It feeds you exactly what you want to hear, confirming all your biases just to keep your eyes on the screen. The Hapobijin is doing the exact same thing in real life.
Yes.
They are serving you a highly curated feed of agreement to maximize immediate emotional engagement. But there is absolutely no underlying moral architecture.
That is exactly it. They are optimizing purely for immediate engagement with zero regard for collateral damage.
None.
And the chilling realization hits when you recognize the inherent betrayal in their methodology.
Right.
The algorithm that enthusiastically validates your criticism of your spouse today is the exact same algorithm that will enthusiastically validate someone else's criticism of you tomorrow.
Oh man, that is terrifying.
Their allegiance isn't to you. Their allegiance is to the comfort of proximity. Whoever is closest gets the agreement.
It's the ultimate paradox of the people pleaser.
Yeah.
They deploy this aggressive agreeableness because they think they're building intimacy and friendship, but they are operating with counterfeit relational currency.
Counterfeit currency. Spot on.
Because the moment I realize how easily they threw my husband under the bus to please me, a massive alarm bell goes off.
You see behind the curtain.
Exactly. I suddenly realize that any vulnerability I share with them, any secret I confess, is just going to be used as ammunition to please the very next person they talk to. In their desperate attempt to be trusted by everyone, they render themselves entirely untrustworthy.
You've diagnosed the structural flaw in their character perfectly. True trustworthiness within a community is never measured by how enthusiastically someone agrees with you to your face.
Right. It's too easy to just nod.
It is quietly, meticulously measured by how they treat the people who are not in the room. When you witness someone refuse to engage in tearing down an absent party, or when you see them hold a neutral boundary, even when pressured to gossip, your respect for them crystallizes.
You feel safe with them.
You know your own reputation will be safe in their hands when you eventually leave the room.
Okay, so this creates a massive behavioral dilemma for us as listeners. The trap is essentially set on all sides.
It's a minefield.
We cannot offer praise to our colleagues about their spouses because we will trigger status anxiety and create an uninvited hierarchy.
Correct.
We cannot offer deep sympathy when people complain about their spouses because we will become entangled in triangulation and eventually be viewed as the enemy.
Also correct.
And we absolutely cannot trust the Hapobijin who tries to bait us into these conversations in the first place.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what is the survival strategy here? How do we actually maintain relationships in a society built on small talk without constantly stepping on landmines?
This is where we transition from diagnosing the psychological pathology to prescribing tactical behavioral solutions based on our text.
Yes, give me the tools.
We have to learn the art of tactical deflection and how to engineer safe emotional distance. We need a toolkit that allows us to disengage from the crossfire without appearing hostile, arrogant, or just entirely antisocial.
I am so ready for the playbook. So let's say my coworker corners me in the break room and launches into a 10-minute monologue about how her husband refuses to take on any mental load regarding their children's school schedules. What is my first move?
The primary technique is the utilization of shallow, non-committal responses.
Shallow and non-committal.
Yes. The objective here is to fulfill the baseline social contract of acknowledging that the person is speaking without adding a single drop of personal evaluation, judgment, or forward momentum to their narrative.
So I'm stripping away the "wow, he is the worst" or the "you deserve so much better."
Completely. You cut all of that out. You confine your reactions strictly to neutral territory.
Okay, give me some examples.
You employ phrases like, "oh, I see," or "that sounds incredibly stressful," or "you certainly have a lot on your plate right now."
Oh.
Notice the linguistic architecture of those responses. That sounds incredibly stressful. Validates that the speaker is experiencing a difficult emotion.
Which fulfills my duty as a polite listener.
Exactly, but it distinctly avoids corroborating the claim that the partner is objectively at fault.
Oh, that's clever. It's like acknowledging the weather without cursing the sky.
That's a very good way to frame it.
I can say, "wow, you are really wet from the rain," without needing to declare the rain is an evil force out to ruin your day. That subtle distinction protects me from triangulation.
Exactly. You are validating the experience without evaluating the cause. And once you have established that neutral acknowledgement, you execute the second technique, the pivot.
The pivot.
You gently but firmly shift the conversational momentum toward harmless mutual territory. You move the topic to a shared project at work, the logistics of an upcoming neighborhood event, or even just a new television series you both watch.
I used to call this conversational aikido.
Conversational Aikido.
Yeah, where you take their incoming energy and you don't block it because that causes conflict.
Yeah.
You just gently redirect it so it safely passes you by.
I love that. Yes, exactly.
But thinking about it deeper, the pivot only works if the other person is actually willing to be redirected.
Ah, the persistent gossiper.
Right. What happens when the coworker stubbornly refuses to take the hint? What if I say, "that sounds stressful. Hey, did you see the email about the new software update?"
Yeah.
And they just bulldoze right past it, dragging the conversation back to their husband's incompetence.
It happens all the time.
I can't just keep pointing at random objects in the room and changing the subject.
Yeah.
Eventually, it becomes incredibly awkward. We need a harder boundary.
You are absolutely right. When the shallow response and the pivot fail to deter someone who is desperate for an emotional transaction, you have to escalate to the most powerful tool in the defensive arsenal.
Okay, what is it?
You have to utilize the weaponization of silence.
Just stop talking entirely.
Yes, but not silence as a punitive insult. Silence as a psychological vacuum.
A psychological vacuum.
Think about it. We are socially conditioned to abhor dead air. Silence creates immense pressure in a conversation.
So uncomfortable.
When someone is venting, they are relying on your verbal feedback, your nods, your uh-huhs, your gasps of shock as fuel to keep their own narrative engine running.
They need my reaction to keep going.
When you completely withdraw that fuel, when you simply maintain eye contact and offer nothing but a blank, attentive stillness, you force them to sit in the vacuum of their own words.
Oh, that is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So without my verbal validation acting as a safety net, their words suddenly sound much louder to their own ears.
Precisely. The psychological vacuum forces them to self-regulate.
Wow.
Often, when faced with total silence, the gossiper will actually begin to walk back their own extreme statements because they aren't receiving the corroboration they need to justify their outrage.
That makes so much sense.
They will naturally wind themselves down to escape the discomfort of the silence. It allows you to maintain a boundary without ever having to aggressively state, "I don't want to talk about this."
But implementing that level of silence requires a massive, almost painful level of ego death on our part.
Oh, it's not easy.
Because I know I struggle with this immensely. We are all addicted to our own hot takes.
We really are.
We love being the wise friend, the armchair therapist, the person who solves the puzzle. When someone brings us a complex domestic drama, our ego screams, "I know exactly what is wrong with your marriage. Let me give you a profound piece of advice."
We want to be the hero of the conversation.
Right. Refusing to share my brilliant opinion feels like a loss of power.
It is a massive blow to the ego, and you have hit on the exact psychological barrier that prevents most people from adopting this methodology.
It's hard to hold back.
We conflate our willingness to give an opinion with our inherent value in a relationship. We think, if I am not actively diagnosing their problems, I am not contributing to the friendship.
Exactly. I feel useless.
But we have to ruthlessly dismantle the false belief that our opinion on someone else's marriage is required, helpful, or even accurate.
Because, as we established earlier, we are looking at a black box. Our advice is fundamentally flawed anyway because we don't have all the data.
Exactly. In these highly volatile emotional arenas, your opinion is almost always dangerous to your own social standing. Releasing yourself from the self-imposed obligation to be the judge, jury, and therapist for every person in your social circle is incredibly liberating, but you have to survive that initial sting to your pride.
You have to accept not being the smartest person in the room.
Yes.
Which leads to my biggest fear about this entire framework.
What's with that?
If I spend my days giving non-committal responses, aggressively pivoting to the weather, and utilizing dead silence, aren't I going to cultivate a reputation as an incredibly boring, dull human being?
I hear this concern a lot.
Because if I refuse to participate in the spicy gossip or offer my edgy hot takes, why would anyone even want to invite me to the dinner party?
That is the most common anxiety surrounding this approach. But this brings us to what I consider the most profound, countercultural argument we're going to make today based on the text.
Okay, I'm listening.
In the specific context of broad social circles and workplace environments, being perceived as boring or unremarkable is not a relational deficit.
It's not.
No, it is actually a highly evolved strategic advantage. It is a superpower.
The superpower of being unremarkable, I am incredibly intrigued because we live in a culture that worships the exact opposite.
Oh, completely.
Like, we are currently living through the era of main character energy.
Yes.
Every social media platform, every self-help guru tells us we need to be loud, authentic, heavily opinionated, and constantly centering ourselves in every narrative. You were telling me there is an advantage to being the NPC, the non-player character in the social dynamic.
Being the NTC in someone else's domestic drama is the ultimate form of self-preservation.
Wow.
When the source advocates for being unremarkable, we do not mean you should lack presence, become a doormat, or lose your personality. We mean you are consciously choosing to become a non-threat.
A non-threat to their status anxiety.
Exactly. By actively refusing to overpraise and actively refusing to badmouth, you remove yourself from the volatile stock market of social comparison.
Just opt out.
You transform yourself into a safe harbor. People who maintain this bland, steady consistency do not become the targets of rumors.
Right, because there's nothing to rumor about.
They do not get dragged into the labyrinth of workplace drama. They fly entirely under the radar of the Hapobesian's gossip machine because the Hapobesian quickly realizes you will not provide the emotional reaction they need to fuel their algorithm.
But choosing to be the NPC requires a deep level of emotional fortitude because it means you have to be comfortable disappointing people.
It does.
Think about the emotional transactions at play here. The person who comes to you bragging about their spouse is desperately seeking the currency of your awe and envy.
Yes.
The person coming to complain is desperately seeking the currency of your shared outrage. If you deploy the shallow response or the silence, you are consciously denying them the specific transaction they came for. You are leaving them slightly unfulfilled.
You are. And that takes immense courage. You have to cultivate the radical sincerity to let that disappointment exist.
Radical sincerity.
You cannot allow someone else's lack of emotional regulation to become your emergency.
I think this is where the modern epidemic of social burnout comes from.
Oh, without a doubt.
Trying to fulfill every emotional transaction that people demand from you just grinds your soul down to dust. If you try to be the perfect, empathetic cheerleader for the boaster, and the perfect outraged co-conspirator for the gossiper, you fracture your own identity.
You do.
You essentially turn yourself into the Hapobesian just to survive the day.
You become a hollow reflection of everyone else's neuroses. Choosing to be bland in these specific scenarios is an act of deep self-respect.
I love that.
You are saying, I recognize the gap between the validation you want from me right now and the engagement I am safely willing to provide. And I am simply going to let that gap exist. Yeah.
I am not going to exhaust my own psychological resources trying to bridge it just to alleviate your temporary discomfort.
That is so powerful. So as we pull back the lens and look at this entire philosophy of boundary setting, how does adopting this careful, unremarkable, emotionally distant approach actually translate to a better life for you?
Well, it shifts everything.
Because a cynic might listen to this deep dive and say, you guys are just advocating for a cold, isolated, defensive existence where nobody actually connects with anyone.
The cynic would be misunderstanding the fundamental nature of connection.
Right.
We need to completely redefine what a meaningful relationship looks like in the broader rings of our social circles. We have been brainwashed into believing that every relationship must be characterized by deep, vulnerable, soul-bearing intimacy.
Wait, the idea that if my coworker and I aren't sharing our deepest childhood traumas and marital struggles, we aren't quote-unquote authentic.
It's a toxic expectation.
Yeah.
The reality is that having broad, relatively shallow connections with neighbors, colleagues, and school parents is incredibly healthy. Shallow doesn't mean bad.
Exactly. These relationships are deeply meaningful because they are stable, predictable, and free of toxic entanglement.
The lack of drama is the feature, not the bug.
Yes.
I don't need the guy who sits 3 desks down from me to be my soulmate. I just need us to be able to collaborate on a quarterly report without some weird underlying tension because I accidentally insulted his wife's career choices 6 months ago.
Precisely. And paradoxically, by maintaining this emotional distance, you actually increase your value within the group over the long term.
Oh, so.
By consistently pausing to imagine the consequences of your words, by constantly asking yourself, will my praise trigger status anxiety for someone else, or will my sympathetic agreement be weaponized in a future argument? You demonstrate a rare level of emotional intelligence.
Because consistency breeds trust.
It does.
Even if they don't consciously realize why, people eventually notice who the safe person is. They notice who never gets involved in the messy, volatile fallout.
Your trustworthiness compounds over time. And perhaps more importantly, think about the sheer reduction in your own cognitive load.
Oh, the mental relief.
This raises an important question. How much of our daily mental fatigue, the stress that keeps us up at night, comes from endlessly analyzing interactions we had no business being involved in?
It's always the overthinking. Why did she look at me like that when I mentioned his promotion? Should I have not agreed that he was being selfish? Is she going to tell him what I said?
Yes.
It's an exhausting loop that burns up so much mental energy.
By adopting this methodology, you construct what psychologists might call a quiet inner axis.
A quiet inner axis.
You develop a stable, unshakable core that isn't easily swayed by the emotional turbulence of the people around you. You can walk through the break room, observe the boasting, observe the complaining, and simply step off the emotional roller coaster.
You just watch it go by.
You see the drama, but you do not internalize it.
I think that is the ultimate takeaway for everyone listening today. Letting go of the crushing expectation that you have to be everything to everyone, that you have to navigate the deepest depths of every acquaintance's personal life. It makes walking through the world so much lighter.
It's true freedom.
Finding that just right distance where you remain polite, cordial, and observant, but fiercely protective of your own emotional boundaries is the key to surviving modern social ecosystems.
You don't survive the minefield by trying to bravely defuse every single bomb you come across.
Right.
You survive by recognizing the signs of a minefield, finding the clear, unremarkable path, and walking it quietly.
That is so well said. Okay, let's quickly recap the intense journey we've taken today. We started by shining a light on the invisible, comparative shadow of praise.
Right, that uninvited hierarchy.
We learned how labeling a partner as the gold standard triggers immediate status anxiety and forces the recipient to perform exhausting emotional labor just to manage the room's ego.
We then explored the treacherous empathy trap, breaking down how a natural desire to comfort a venting friend actually pulls you into a state of triangulation, turning you into a long-term enemy the moment the couple reconciles.
Which is terrifying. Then, we analyzed the chilling mechanics of the hapobegen, understanding why the people-pleaser acts as a counterfeit social algorithm.
Optimizing for engagement.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And why the person who is eagerly gossiping with you today is absolutely going to gossip about you tomorrow.
From there, we built our defensive toolkit. We talked about mastering the shallow, non-committal response, executing the conversational pivot, and harnessing the immense boundary-enforcing power of the psychological vacuum of silence.
And finally, we uncovered the ultimate strategic advantage of being safely unremarkable, the radical sincerity of allowing people's emotional demands to go unfulfilled in order to protect your own quiet inner axis.
It is a comprehensive framework for relational health.
Hmm.
But before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with a final provocative thought that flips everything we've discussed on its head.
Oh, I love a good plot twist. Let's hear it.
So throughout this entire deep dive, we have focused almost exclusively on how you should react when other people start talking about their spouses.
Right, we framed it as protecting yourself from their oversharing.
But consider the inverse. The next time you feel the sudden, burning urge to heavily praise your own partner in a group setting to boost your own status.
Oh boy.
Or the next time you feel the desperate need to vent about your household frustrations to a casual colleague just to alleviate your own stress. Pause.
Oh wow. Turn the mirror around.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what invisible ripples am I about to create in this room? Am I about to trigger someone else's status anxiety just to stroke my own ego?
That's a hard question to ask yourself.
Or am I about to force my coworker into the uncomfortable position of being a hot Bobesian just because I need to vent?
We have to make sure we aren't the ones actively planting the mines in our own social circles. We have to take responsibility for the emotional transactions we are demanding from others.
Exactly. True emotional maturity isn't just about protecting your boundaries. It's about respecting the boundaries of others enough to not burden them with the weight of your private world.
That is a profound lens shift and a thought that is going to linger with me and hopefully you for a very long time. Thank you for this incredible
It
deconstruction.
was a pleasure unpacking it with you.
And to you, listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. I highly encourage you to take this newly forged conversational armor out into the real world this week. The next time you find yourself in that break room and the topic of someone's spouse inevitably comes up, just smile. Offer a slow, attentive nod, take a sip of your coffee, and let the chaos safely pass you by. Stay unremarkable and protect your peace. We will catch you on the next deep dive.